everyone, and welcome to today's Seed World Innovation Webinar Series. My name is Alex Martin, and I serve as the Associate Editor for Seed World, and today I'm happy to be your host. Today's theme is reinventing seed breeding and production with aerial data acquisition and analytics. We'll talk about aerial data, how to measure multi-plot field experiments effectively, and how to improve seed production monitoring and forecasting to lower logistics and market risks. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Delair for partnering with us on today's webinar. During the presentation, you'll likely have some questions for our speakers. Please type these into the chat box at any time during the webinar, and we'll address them during the Q&A sessions we'll hold after the speakers finish their presentation. Also, during the presentation, we'll have a few poll questions for you. They'll pop up in your chat box for you to answer. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available at seedworld.com following the proceedings. Today, we'll be hearing from Benharrosh and Alexei Jansen. Benjamin is a co-founder of Delair. Previously, as head of North American operations, he oversaw Delair's expansion into the US and Canadian market from the company's base in Los Angeles. Currently, as Vice President of Enterprise Sales, Benjamin is leading the deployment of Delair's aerial intelligence solutions for agriculture globally. Alexei is an agronomist graduated from the Agriculture Engineering School, Agro-Paris Tech. At Delair, he is in charge of providing technical expertise to sales and marketing teams regarding Delair's agriculture drone products and data analytics software. Alexei has a strong product experience in agribusiness from crop production to agricultural machinery. He puts his expertise in practice to make agriculture move to digitalization. And now I will let Benjamin and Alexei take it away from here.
Hello, everybody. So you can see my face here, but I'm going to switch the camera off so the connection is better. It's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to talk to you about what drones and aerial imagery can bring to the seed industry, and especially what Delair technology can bring to you. So just to start, I would like everybody to know that we will be present during the ISF World Seed Congress early June. It's in France this year. In Nice, in the south of France. We'd be very happy to have the opportunity to meet with you and to tell you more about the technology and what we could do for you. So if you plan on going there, please let us know so that we can schedule a meeting with you. Today, a few words about the agenda. I would like to talk to you about a few things, and we'll start by telling you how aerial imagery and drone technology can help you on the phenotyping bottleneck, meaning that on the research side of things for the seed companies, there is a bottleneck that we've identified in terms of phenotyping, and we think that drone data can help you out on this. And the second topic that we would address today is about seed production monitoring. And we would like to end this webinar by talking to you about how to work with drones on a daily basis. So before we start, we'd like to launch a poll to know a bit more about your activity, whether you're in research, in production, or anything else. That would help us to better understand where are your interests and how we can help you out. You can still continue to answer the poll, but I'm gonna say a few words about Delair today. So for those who don't know us, Delair, as you can hear from my accent, is a French company. So we have a headquarters in France, but we have a few offices all over the world. We have offices in the US, offices in Singapore, in Beijing, and in Belgium. We are close to 200 people, like 180 today. We resell in 70 countries. So today that makes us one of the largest purely commercial UAV company. UAV is the name, the technical name for drones, for those who don't know. So we are one of the largest. That means that we can provide you the kind of level of quality that an enterprise level you could expect, and we can provide you with a global support. So that's something that is very interesting, especially when we work with an international company. The fact that we can support their research activities in Latin America, in North America, in China, in Africa, or in Europe, that's something that is usually very well appreciated by our clients. Another thing that I would like to stress on this slide is that we're not only people designing drone technology, but we also have, like, in our team some data scientists and data analysts, and especially some agronomists that can help us, like, design solution to turn, like, aerial data and aerial imagery into actionable insights for breeding and seed companies. So this is a very important point because this expertise is absolutely necessary when you want to go from an aerial image to a real information that is actionable by the customer. On the next slide, we would like to show you a bit of references. This is to tell you a bit more about the fact that we can work with large companies. So we've been working with most of the largest, like seed companies, where there is Syngenta, Monsanto, Bayer now as well, Limagran, all those companies that have multiple sites all over the world. We've been able to be validated by those companies at an enterprise level and work with those people. On the same side, we are working with, like, a large plantation. So Siat, the one that you can see where we worked in Africa, or Michelin, the tire company, where we worked on, like, monitoring their plantation in Indonesia. So that's just a few words to tell you that we can work with small companies, with large companies. We can offer service at an enterprise level, and we can work all over the world. So let me tell you a bit about what we've identified as being the phenotyping bottleneck. So today, the technology that are using for phenotyping, so for breeding, historically is the human eye. So you send someone in the field to observe the field and to write down some observation and give it to the manager. What we've identified today is that this technology is very slow, sometimes costly, and it's very hard to hire the amount of people that is needed to do that. So there has been some other technology that have been used in the past. You can see some of those in this slide. For example, hand sensors, so like having someone walking the fields and taking some pictures with a smartphone. This is pretty good when you want to have, like, a very high accuracy, but this is not something that you can do all over the crop and all over the plot or even the microplot. The other things is, like, onboard sensors on robots. So the one that you can see on the bottom left of the slide is what we call the Phenomobile. That's been designed by the Institute of Agronomy in France. It's very good, very accurate. Researchers and scientists, they love it, but this is very slow to deploy and very hard to operate. And same thing when you want to deploy local sensors, that's pretty accurate, but then you need to put the sensor all over the field, so it creates, like, a high cost of maintenance. And same thing, you cannot cover all the crop, which is why we think that there is a place for drones, because the drones, they can increase the throughput of your phenotyping, and they can increase the exhaustivity. Just a few numbers. for you to know all those techniques that I've showed you before. More or less, you can cover 15 to 100 microplot per hour. With the drone, you can cover up to 10,000 to 50,000 microplots per hour. So this is really like a breakthrough innovation, because that helps you unlock the bottleneck of how to do phenotyping on a research field. And this is very important, because then we can tell you you're not limited anymore in your size of research by the capacity you have today in phenotyping. With the drone technology, you can unlock those limits and multiply by 10, by 100 the size of your research field. So I'd like everybody to understand that, because this is a kind of a revolution that is happening. I'm not saying that the drone can do everything, and we'll see more in details what it can do and what it cannot do. But this is certainly a complementary tool that will help you have a better understanding of your research trial. Another poll, before I get into more details, we'd like to know if you have already used drones in the past, or how much you know about it, because depending on your answers, we can know if you want me to get into more details or not, like the basics of what is a drone. So I can see in the poll that I would say now, I'm not sure everybody has answered it yet, but half of you have used drones in the past, and on the half of you that have used drones, I would say half of it multi-rotor and half of it is fixed wing. So I will maybe just get into like the basics of drones very quickly. Don't worry, to help you better understand how it can be a phenotyping tool. So drones, you need to see it as a tool to create a digital twin of your crop. This is really the point of it, and that's really how you need to think of this technology. Drones are here to acquire data, mostly imagery over a field, and then with the software that we can provide, or you can find on the market as well, you can turn those imagery into a digital twin. And what we mean by digital twin is a 2D image geo-referenced of the crop and a 3D model of the crop in different bandwidth. And then the idea of it is that once you've created your digital twin, you can share it with other people within the company. You can manipulate it, you can annotate it, you can analyze it, and you can share the comments within the company. And not only this, but once you've done that for a year, you archive the data, you archive the digital twin of your field, and then you can compare from 1 year to another, from 1 day to another, from 1 month to another, and make some comparison that will be absolutely true, because it will not depend on the observation of someone, of any human eye. So really think of the drone as a tool to create a digital twin. That's very important. It's not a toy. It's not only a sensor or a camera. It's a tool to build a digital twin of your crop. And that's the vision that we have in the company. So on the left side, you can see like the deployment of different kind of sensors. So it's either human eye, ground-based sensor, IoT sensor, drones, or helicopters. So drones is only a new kind of sensor. Those sensors, then you turn it on the software into a digital twin of your crop. And then once you analyze those data and once you extract some information, you can integrate it into the software that you use on a daily basis. So if you have a specific ERP, if you use Excel to manage the data that you generate with this tool, you need to think of our technology as not as a standalone technology, but a fully integrated technology. So it will just feed your actual workflow, and it will not be like an additional workflow to handle on your side. So that's you can see on the screen here like an idea of what is a 3D model. You can navigate in the 3D model, manipulate it, annotate it, observe it, make some measurements. Whether you manipulate it manually or automatically, it doesn't matter. Those things are all feasible on the software. So here we come with the drone. So for those of you who don't know what is a drone, so it's an autonomous flying sensor. Usually in most of the cases you see a quadcopter. So it's like a helicopter with 4 propeller or 6 propeller or 8 propellers. This is the most common area because this is kind of cheap, easy to operate because it lands and takes off vertically, but this is not a tool that you can use for productization and that you can use to cover like large areas. So this is a drone, but this is a fixed wing drone. So it's used to cover larger areas, typically up to 500 acres, 200 acres, you know, those kinds of size. What you need to know is that it's fully autonomous. So there is no remote control. This is not a toy. To be honest with you, this is not fun to operate. Once you launch it, you just wait. You act more like someone who would do like traffic control than someone who would do plane piloting, you know. So this is pretty boring. It's just a tool to collect data, fully autonomous. You can communicate with this tool using like an antenna or using 3G, 4G communication, and you have a tablet on which you will design like the flight plan. So you draw an area on the tablet, like you would draw it on Google Earth, and it's you would send it to the drone. It will automatically calculate the flight plan and then fly over the area and fly over the crops to capture the data. So that was just a brief introduction for those who don't know what is a drone. And then after the drones, you get imagery. And those imagery, you get like typically 10,000 images after a flight, after a single flight. You need to process those imagery to make one and only one digital twin of your crop. And then you will, in a second step, you will analyze this digital twin to extract valuable information. So just a few words about this UX11 hack that we designed internally. We are at a stage now in the drone industry where we're like reaching maturity. So this is the 3rd generation of drones. So for those of you who have already used drones, forget about the drones that crash every day. Forget about the drones where you would need to be a very skilled pilot to operate it. This is the 3rd generation of drone. This is fully autonomous. It can bring you like actionable information in real time. You don't need a soccer field or a football field to operate it. You can deploy it from a very small areas. And last thing, the sensors are adapted to the needs. So it's not like the 1st generation where it was designed by hobbyists just to have like a nice flying object. No, this is a tool that provides imagery in bandwidths that are really useful for you. A few words about multispectral imagery for those who don't know. This is here you can see on the bottom of the picture between the purple and the red. This is all what you can see with the human eye. Okay, and here you can see the curve of a healthy plant by how it reflects the light, and by a stressed plant by how it reflects the light. So you can see that a stressed plant and a healthy plant, they don't reflect the light the same way, and we will see that very briefly. Now, and that will explain you why we have such a sensor in the field on the drone. So the first thing is that blue and red I absorbed by chlorophyll for photosynthesis, which is why it doesn't reflect any blue or any red. So you need to know that the light that you can see with your eyes is composed of red, green, and blue. So this is why the leaves are green. It's because green is reflected by chlorophyll, while blue and red are absorbed by chlorophyll. So this is pretty easy to understand, because this is all what you can see with your eyes today. When you look at a tree or a plant, this is usually pretty green, and that reflects the amount of chlorophyll pigments that you have in the plant. The other thing is the near infrared. So near infrared is something that you cannot see with your eyes, but that gives you a very good idea of the biomass of the plant, because the near infrared bandwidth is reflected by leaf cells. So everything that creates a biomass within the plant reflects very well the near infrared. So those are the kind of thing that if you can collect data with near infrared imagery, you will be able to get some information pretty easily on the biomass. And the last thing, the one that is pretty unusual, but we are one of the very few companies to use this kind of sensor, is to have the red edge band. And the red edge band is more absorbed by chlorophyll when the concentration of chlorophyll increases in the plant. So it gives you an idea of like the dynamics of the plant. And at some very critical stages of the growth, this is something that is super critical. And we will see later in the webinar that the fact that you have it on a sensor, on a drone, will give you way more information than if you don't have it. So this is a quick overview to make you understand why observing how the light is reflected by plant can give you an idea of the plant. And here to illustrate it, if you have a plant stress, that means that you will have like a less chlorophyll production. So less chlorophyll production, if you remember well what I said earlier, it means that the red edge reflectance increases, and you will be able to see it on specific indexes that will give you this idea of the red edge reflectance. Also, at a later stage, it will create less photosynthesis capacity. So the red and blue reflectance increases, and you will be able to see it with another index. And at the end, it will create less biomass production. And if you remember well, you will be able to see it by the decrease of the near infrared reflectance. So what it shows on this slide is that at every stage of the plant, you will be able to detect the stress of the plant by using different indexes and different bandwidths. So that's a very important point to understand, because it shows you that you need to have a drone imagery multiple times over your crop and during the time of the growth. And at every point, that will give you the agility to adapt the way you manage your crop and to try to balance any plant stress that you can observe on the field. So it's really a tool that will help you better understand your field and better manage it. And then we will see one by one all those traits, but those are all the traits that you can extract using drone imagery. So you can extract the number of plants, you can extract the height, because if you remember well, we have the 3D model of the plantation. You can extract some color information. You can extract, characterize the emergence, characterize the flowering, find out the stay green capacity of the crop, or even like detect some weed within the crop. But I will show you with a few examples how it looks like. So now that we know the basis of this technology, I'd like to get into more details about how we can use drones for phenotyping. So there are three different aspects of it. First of all, as I said earlier, you can create a digital twin. Secondly, that will help you validate your trial. And lastly, that will help you to calculate some traits and do some phenotyping over your field. So the digital twin, here you can see a sunflower research plot with a few thousands microplots. So this has been covered by drone imagery. So when I will zoom in, you will see that there is more resolution. And outside of it, this is what you can see with satellite imagery. So typically Google Maps. So when you zoom, on the field, you can see that you can easily identify the different rows and even the different plants. And this is an information that is very important. So imagine that you can have like a centimetrical accuracy over your plot. Here, you can have this kind of information to identify the plot, the rows one by one, the microplots, and the plants. So the first thing is that once you've covered it all and you've mapped it out, I mean, on the software that we offer, you can link those information with the experimental design plan that you have. So if you have like an experimental design plan, so typically the one that you have in the format of an Excel file, showing what are like the interrows, what are the specific size of a microplot, how do you number it, then that will help us to link the pixels with the information that you will give us as an input. So for example, if we click on a microplot, we have here on the right side the ID of the microplot. So those are like the IDs, the way you name it. So this is the example of a client, and this is exactly the reference number of what the client uses on his basis on his systems, so namely on this ERP. And then we will see that on all those microplots, you can calculate statistics once you've calculated like the different traits. Then once you've done the digital twin, so you've set the basis, you have like all your information about the plot and the microplots and about the ID of the microplots. Then the second step will be to do a trial validation. So the trial validation for some of the customers we've been working with can be based on two things. So the first thing is like the number of plants. If there is a number of plants that is too low, they will discard the microplots and not even consider it in their statistics. So here what you can see is that once you've mapped out your field and created a digital twin, the software can automatically detect the gaps in the rows. So those are all the white dots that you can see on the screen. Quantify those gaps and then calculate the number of plants. This is very important to understand because this is fully autonomous process and you can turn aerial imagery, drone imagery into a number of plants by microplots. So you don't need anymore to send like interns during the summer or like people in the field and make a big quality check on the way they count those plants. This is something, the stand count, that can be done fully automatically from the drone flight to the extraction of this information. It's a fully autonomous and seamless workflow. And so for the trial validation, here you can see the map where every microplot has been colored depending on the number of plants that have been like calculated by our solution. So the more it's blue, the more there are plants in the microplots, and the more it's red, the less populated it is. And then the client will, so on this specific example, again, it's a sunflower research field. The client decided to discard plots that are below 80 plants. So for them, it's a very easy tool to decide to discard those plots, and then you create a shapefile with all the discarded plots, and we will not base any statistics or any analysis on the seed that could be extracted from those discarded plots. The second thing that you can do on a field trial validation is when you can observe the field heterogeneity. So what you can see here on the slide is exactly, I mean, typically what we call an NDVI imagery that will give you an idea of the near infrared reflectance. And here, what you can see on the bottom right of the field, it does that there is a geographical area where there is a less populated microplots. So this is very typical of a field heterogeneity. because this is something very geographical, and this is not something that was part of the design and the experimental plan of the company. So again, on the same trial, they decided to discard this part of the research field based on those observations. So for them, it's a big gain in terms of efficiency, because they only focus on what makes sense, on the right data. And last thing on the research trial is trait phenotyping. So trait phenotyping is you can observe and quantify information on the research plot. So first, very basic is you create scouting maps that will give you a general overview of the green biomass, the crop vigor, or the chlorophyll content and concentration on your field. So this is like an overview. This is not something you could easily quantify, but I'd give you an overview, and especially for what I just showed about trial validation, this is the kind of overview that can be very, very useful. One of the traits that you can extract is the F cover. So that's like the quantity of soil that is covered by green. Again, we've developed, so this is still the RGB, the visible imagery. We've developed an algorithm. Here you can see on the screen that will automatically gather and create conglomerates of all the green areas, and then we will calculate the proportion by microplot of what is bare soil and what is covered by green, and this will give you like an information about the F cover. This is this ratio between those two areas, and then you can build automatically maps of your research field, where you will like decide the thresholds here, and you would like illustrate and show it on your field based on the greenness that you want. So the more green it is, the more the F cover is high. Second thing that you can extract is to characterize the emergence. So for this, we go one step beyond. We will calculate plant by plant the capacity to cover the soil, so the area of green that there is plant by plant, and then make an information microplot by microplot. This is an information that has been shown to be very useful for like a lot of seed companies to be able to characterize the emergence. That's a very important trait for the research field, and this is something that is very critical that can happen in a very short period of time. So the capacity of the drones, if you remember well, to cover 50,000 microplots in a single hour, while classical solutions will cover 15 to 100 microplots, is very useful, because then in 1 hour you can characterize the emergence all over your field, and you don't have discrepancies between a part of your field that you would have covered on day 1 and the other part that you would have covered on day 2 or 3. And then again, you can create those maps and those statistics by microplot. Another thing that you can characterize is the flowering. So this is an example about canola. Today, the algorithm that we've designed works mostly for like yellow flowerization. But this is something that we can characterize, and again, this is something that is very critical, that can happen very in very short period of time. So you need to be able to have a solution that is very reactive. So the drones, you can deploy it in 5 minutes, and that can cover a full area in a single hour. And the same thing, once you've detected it, there's an algorithm that can create like areas and aggregates of those flowering areas, and we will calculate some statistics based on the area that is covered by the flowers. Another thing that we can calculate is the stay green. So that's on corn, what you can see on the screen, and that's the capacity to stay green after at the end of like the season. And that's a very important as well trait that is usually pretty hard to observe, because the plants are at a very late stage of growth. So it's hard to to go into those fields. It's hard to really observe it. So the aerial way is a very good way to do so. Here you can see with the RGB, so the visible images, what it can tell you. So you can see here on the left, it's a bit more green. And then we would again create those maps where you can see microplot by microplot the greenness of it at the end of the season. And that's the kind of thing that we can deliver. Another thing that you can calculate, if you remember well, we have a 3D model of the microplot, so we can calculate the height of those plants. It works on today mostly on sunflower and canola. You can calculate the height of those plants at all the stages. In corn, in very late stages, it can be pretty challenging to calculate the height because you would need to be able to detect the bare soil. But usually it's been shown to be very efficient, the capacity to calculate the height, and way more exhaustive than the kind of solution that you guys use today. And then you create those maps. Every color gives you an idea of how populated is the microplot, and you can build whatever custom-based analytics you want to build over this. Let me stay a few seconds on this slide. This graph that you can see on the right side of the slide is important because it shows you that you can create dashboards for the management of your company. So I don't know how much of you are like managing like a field, a local field, or is managing like a multiple local fields. But if you are a manager and you need to manage fields in Latin America, in Africa, in North America, in Europe, China, usually the data that you get from those fields is not very homogeneous. And here you have something that is like very absolute, and you can create your own dashboards based on all the microplots that would have been covered by the drones. And every microplot, every plot would have been observed by the same technology and the same kind of accuracy and precision. So that's very important to understand that this tool, it makes you accelerate your digital transformation, and it makes you able to create those dashboards and to give to the management a better understanding of what's happening on the field. So not only you can do that, but you can also like estimate and assess the response to, for example, fungicides. Here, this is an example on a potato crop where we can calculate like the biomass by microplot, and that will give us an idea on how it will respond to the fungicides. So here you can see, for example, the one that is pretty green. It shows that there has been a good reaction to fungicides, and it helps you better like do breeding on those kind of seeds. As well, it can be used for people for like people that design phyto products or fungicides because that will give them like better ideas of how it helped the plant to grow. And the last one I would like to show you is about weed detection. So here there is the capacity as well to respond to a weed killer. So you can see on the left side of the screen in blue, those are the areas that are populated with weed, and it can give you like an idea on how it's been able to respond to this. So to summarize this first part about phenotyping, don't worry, the other parts are a bit shorter than that, but this one, on this one, there was a lot of things about the basis of the technology. But to conclude, what those kind of solutions can bring you to phenotyping, it can help you to do more. So multiply by 10 or 20 your capacity of doing phenotyping and then research. It can help you to do faster. So for the traits that requires a lot of reactivity, that is very important, because then you can have like almost an instantaneous map at the same stage, at the same time exactly, of all your plot, and it can give you a greater accuracy. So here we are talking about pixels. We're not talking about the interpretation of a human eye on a field. So pixel, there is a limited stuff you can say about it. This is exactly what you observe, and this is like a photo. This is something that you can oppose to the observation of a human being. So one of the questions that we would like to ask you is what is the most important cost item for your field trial? And the reason why we are asking that is to better understand how the drone can help you on this, and if this is something we can help you on, or if this is not. Again, when I summarized like the benefits of the drones, I didn't talk yet about cost, because we help you do more faster and with greater accuracy. So we help you do better your job. But just to better understand what are the big costs for you, that could be an interesting information for us. So when you compare drone versus manual count, that kind of summarizes what I just said, but it gives you like the capacity to do more and faster. It gives you a better accuracy, and it helps you see beyond the visible. So I didn't stress on that enough, probably. But today, the human eye can only see some things. There are things that plants can express, the way they reflect the light, but our human eye, cannot interpret it. So by using drones and those kind of new technology, at least imagery and multispectral energy, you can go beyond the limitation of a human being. And last thing I would like to share is that by creating those digital twins, manipulating it, sharing it within a company, you are setting the basis of like leveraging artificial intelligence for your job. And this is very important to understand, because if you want to be ready for the revolution that will happen on artificial intelligence, this is the way to go. And this will prepare your data in a smart way and in a very organized way that is good enough when the time is ready for artificial intelligence. All the traits that I've shown you, they are not all based on artificial intelligence. And to be honest with you, we are at the very early stages of it. So I'm not saying today that you can detect automatically whatever you want to see on the field. But if you want to be ready for that when the technology is here, you need to be prepared, and you need to have this kind of solutions that collect and organize this kind of data. That's an interesting example to show you the accuracy. When I told you about the limitation of a human being, there is another limitation. Usually, when you send people over the field, that at least it's like this in Europe, to do stand count. This is in the summer. It's very hot. People are getting tired at the end of the day, and here. This is a map that shows you the difference between the manual count and the drone count. So when it's like a dark green, it's exactly the same. When it's a light green, it's very similar. And when it is red or orange, this is very different. And you can see on this area that is a very well identified area, there are a lot of discrepancies. And when we told that to the customer, they've been double checking the manual count by the people who counted it, and they observed that they messed it out on this very specific area of the field. So we don't know if it was because it was the end of the day, or because the person that was in charge of it didn't know very well how to do it. But this is exactly the kind of error that you will not have anymore if you use imagery and drone imagery. Just a few words about how the technology can help you on the seed production monitoring as well. So the idea is to extract information that will help you calculate or estimate the yield of your field. So we're not saying there that we can calculate the yield for you, but we will give you a lot of information on the field that hopefully will help you better estimate your yield. That's the position that we want to have. We are just an enabler, and we still need to have like your expertise in order to calculate the yield. So the first thing is pretty basic, is to assess the exact planted areas. So sometimes, you know, it can diverge a bit from the theory. And here, by measuring the digital twin, you have the exact, with a centimetrical accuracy, the exact planted area. Then with the software and drone imagery, you can qualify male and female plants, so that you can only consider the female one. That will give you like a better idea of how you can assess the yield. And then again, we can estimate the number of plants in your seed production field. So that will give you as well an idea of what could be the yield that you can expect. And remember, I don't have to tell you that, but if you have a better yield forecast, you can better optimize your logistics and have a better cost at the end of the day. Another thing that you can do with those kind of data is to see like the heterogeneity and the differences that you can observe in your field. And here, by analyzing like the NDVI, that gives you an idea of the crop vigor, you can divide your fields in two areas if you want, and decide to do sampling in those two areas. And then you, since you consider that those areas are homogeneous enough, you can then extrapolate the information that you would have observed on sampling on the field, and have a better information on those areas. So really, the idea of zoning and sampling is a very smart way to use drone imagery. Another thing, so this is based on what we did with the customer. So this is a grid of like they've modified like the density of seeding, the seeding rate. So every square is a different seeding rate, and we are observing with the drones the density of the population, so that we can correlate the impact of the rate, the seeding rate, with the growth of the plants. So this is something that will help you in the future to better use like the seeding rate, because maybe sometimes you will observe that with a too high seeding rate, your plant doesn't grow very well. So this is exactly the kind of thing that you can do with drone imagery, because every pixel is your reference very precisely. So you can compare everything you observe on the field with the grid that you have, with the input that you have. So that's important to know, because then you can optimize your practices. Last thing I would like to mention is to improve and to optimize the herbicide spraying. So the drone imagery and the technology that we offer helps you to better locate like the areas with weed. And since you have better located the areas with weed, you only apply product where there is a weed. So you use less product. And the idea is that you have a environmental impact, because you use less product. We estimate that usually you can lower the amount of product that you put in your crop by 50%. So it's better for the environment. It has an economic impact, because obviously the product is pretty expensive, and there is a benefits of 20 euros per hectare. And we are working now with all the manufacturers of sprayers to have a seamless integration between drone observation and sprayers, so that they can integrate the maps that have been created by the drones into their sprayers, and do something either section by section or nozzle by nozzle. And then to end this webinar, a few slides about how to use the drone. For those who don't know how to use a drone, there is a step one that usually takes less than 5 minutes to plan a flight. So you draw an area you have a tablet with kind of a Google Earth. You draw the area, and then you push a button, and it will automatically calculate the flight plan. Then you launch the drone. So the drone can be mounted in less than 5 minutes. You launch it with your hand. It will automatically fly, go along its path, cover the area, take some imagery. One thing that is important to know is that it can give you real-time imagery. So that's good because then you don't leave the field unless you are sure you've collected the right imagery. Plus, you can make a ground check while the drone is flying. So that's important. If you observe something very strange in your crop, since you're already in the field, you can go there, observe it with your eyes, and the drone will continue its flight the way it's been programmed. So that will last an hour, depending on the area that you want to cover. Step 3 is that after the landing, you upload the imagery on the cloud that we give you access to. So it's a very simple workflow. It's a drag and drop workflow between your hard drive and the hard drive of the drone and the cloud-based software. And then you click on the button to generate the business insights. So if you want to do stand count, if you want to do calculation of height, it can take a few hours or a few days, depending on the exact traits that you want to extract. Or for some of them, it will be instantaneous, and you can have it like by clicking on a button. So really very easy workflow. For those who have already used drones like 10 years ago, there is nothing to see. Even 5 years ago, there has been a huge improvement between the first generation and the third generation. So really, think of the drone as a tool that is very easy to operate. And maybe the last thing that I would like to share with you is when you decide to buy a drones. So most of you know the quadcopters, the multi-rotor, because it's very cheap to buy and it's very easy to operate. But remember that if you want to use it on a monthly basis or weekly basis, and if you want to cover large areas, you will spend a lot of time and money on operational costs. So for sure, the investment is lower, but the operational costs are way higher. And here we gave a few numbers of what it means for field trial, for precision ag, for plantation. For field trial, for example, this is around 17 euros, so around $20 per hectare. While if you use a fixed wing, this is 9 euros, so not even $10 per hectare. So really keep that in mind when you make your choice. For sure, the investment is a bit better, but if you want to use it on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, if you want to use it as a tool that you will integrate into your workflow, I strongly recommend you going to a fixed wing drone.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for participating in today's Seed World Innovation webinar series, and I hope you have found this information to be of value. We will have a Q&A document available for download when this presentation goes live on seedworld.com. I'd also like to quickly thank our technical assistants, Teresa and Kyle, who've been working behind the scenes to make this a successful event. Thanks again, and we hope you have a terrific day. This is Alex Martin of Seed World, signing off.